Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we will discuss supervised versus unsupervised versus reinforcement learning. The evolution of AI has changed the entire 21st century. In terms of technology, AI has stood in the spotlight and its advancement are quicker than we predicted. With such an exponential growth in AI, machine learning is becoming the most training field of 21st century. It is starting to redefine the way we live, and it's time sorry, we understood what it is and why it matters. In this session, we will discuss the different types of machine learning, and we will compare them to each other. So let me run you through today's agenda. I'm sorry. We are going to begin this session with an introduction to machine learning. Next, we will discuss the types of machine learning. After that, we will compare supervised, unsupervised, and reinforcement based on few key parameters. We will finally end this session by discussing a few example problems that can be solved using supervised, unsupervised, and reinforcement learning algorithm. So without any further delay, let's get started. So guys, machine learning is the science of getting computer to act by feeding them data and letting them learn a few tricks on their own without being explicitly programmed. Now this sounds fully a lot like a human child. So let's consider a small scenario to understand machine learning. Now, as a child, if you had to distinguish between fruits such as cherry, apple, and orange, you wouldn't even know where to start because you are not familiar with sorry, how the fruit look. Now, as we grow up, we collect more information and start developing the capability to distinguish between various fruits. The only reason why we are able to make this distinction is because we observe our surrounding, we gather more data, and we learn from our past experience. Sorry. It is because our brain is capable enough to think and make decisions since we have been feeding it a lot of data, and this is exactly how machine learning works. It involves continuously feeding data to a machine so that it can interpret this data, understand the useful insight, detect patterns, and identify my key features. So to involve problem, this is very similar to how our brain works. Now let's move ahead and take a look at the different types of machine learning. So first of all, we have supervised machine learning. Now supervised machine mean to oversee or direct a certain activity and make sure it's done correctly. In this type of learning, the machine learn under guidance. So at school, our teacher guided us and taught us. Similarly, in supervised learning, machine learn by feeding them label data and explicitly them hi, this is the input and this is exactly how the output must look. Okay, so the teacher in this case is the training data. Next, we have unsupervised learning. Unsupervised means to act without any supervision or without any body direction. Now, here the data is not labeled, there is no guide, and the machine has to figure out the data set given, and it has to find hidden pattern in order to make prediction about output. An example of unsupervised learning is an adult like you and me. We don't need a guide to help us with our daily activities. We can figure things out on our own without any suspension. Finally, we have reinforcement learning. Now, guys, reinforcement means to establish or encourage a pattern of behavior. Let's say that you were brought up it is an isolated island. What would you do now? Initially, you do panic and you do be unsure of what to do, where to get food from, how to live, and so on. But after a while, you will have to adopt. You must learn how to live in the island, adapt to changing climate, learn more to eat and what not to eat. So here you are basically following the head and trail concept because you knew to the surrounding, and the only way to learn is experience. And then learn from this is what reinforcement learning is. It is a learning method. It is a learning method where in an agent which is basically you stuck on the island interacts with its environment which is in the island by producing action and discover error or rewards, and once the agent gets trained it gets ready to predict the new data presented. Now let's move ahead and look at the difference between supervised versus unsupervised versus reinforcement. So begin by looking at their definitions. Now, like I mentioned earlier, supervised learning is a type of machine learning wherein we teach the machine using label data. So an input and your output is label. Next, we have unsupervised learning. Over here, the data provided to the machine is not labeled and the machine has to learn without any supervision. So that's why it should discover hidden pattern and trend and the data. Finally, we have reinforcement learning. Now, the basic concept behind the reinforcement learning is that there is an agent. Now, this agent is put in an unknown environment so that agent get to explore the environment by taking action and transitioning from one state to the other state so that he can get maximum rewards. Now the next parameter to consider the types of problems that are solved using supervised, unsupervised, and reinforcement learning. So under supervised learning, we have two main categories of problems. We have regression problems and we have classification problems. Now, in an important difference between classification and regression, basically classification is about predicting a label or class, whereas regression is about predicting a continuous quantity. Now, let's say that you have to classify email into two different routes. So here, basically, we will be label our email as a spam and non-spam mails. For this kind of problem where we have to assign our input data into different classes, we make use of classification algorithm. On the other hand, regression is used to predict a continuous quantity. Now, a continuous variable is variable that infinite numbers of possibility. For example, a person weight, so someone could be 180 pounds or they could 180.10 pounds or 180.110. The number of possibilities for weight are limits. And this is exactly what a continuous variable as to regression is, a predictive analysis used to finally outcome. Like, let's say that you want to predict the price of a stock over a period. For such problem, you can make use of regression. Coming to unsupervised learning, this type of learning can be used to solve association problem and clustering problem. Association problem basically involve discovering pattern and data finding, so co-occurrence and so on. The relationship between bread and jam. So people who tend to buy bread and also tend to buy jam. Over here, it's all about finding association between items that frequently co-occurs or items are similar to each other. Apart from association problem, unsupervised learning also deal with clustering and anomaly detection problem. Clustering is used for Clustering is used for cases that involves targeted marketing, sorry, wherein you are given a list of customer and some information about them, and what you have to do is you have to cluster these customer based on the similarity. Now guys, digital worlds use a clustering technique to potential into different categories based on their interests and their intent. Anomaly detection, on the other hand, is used for tracking unusual activity. An example of this is credit card fraud, wherein various unsupervised algorithms are used to detect suspicious activity. Then there is reinforcement learning. Now this type of learning is comparatively different and reinforcement learning. The key difference is that the input itself depends on the action we take. Example, in robotic, we might start in a situation where the robot does not know anything about the surrounding it is in. So far it is perform certain action, it find out more about the world, but the world it sees depend on what her it chooses. So to move right or what are it should to move forward or backward. In this case, the robot is known as the agent and its surrounding is the environment. So for each action it take, it can receive a reward or it might receive a punishment. Now, the next parameter is the type of data used to train a machine. When it comes to supervised learning, it's quite clear and simple. The machine will be provided with a label set of input and output data in the training pages itself. So basically, you feed the output of your algorithm into the system. This means that in supervised learning, the machine already know the output of algorithm before it start working on it. Now, an example is classifying a data set into either cats or dog. All right, so if the algorithm is feed in an example of a cat, the image is labeled as a cat. Similarly for a dog. So guys, this is how the model is thought. It's told that this is a cat by labeling it. After the algorithm is thought, it is then tested using a new data set. But a point to remember here is that in the training phases for a supervised learning algorithm, the data is labeled. All right, the input is also labeled and the output is also labeled. And unsupervised learning, the machine is only given the input data. So here we don't tell the system where to go. The system has to understand itself from the input data that we gave to it. So does this by finding patterns in the data. So if we try to classify images into cats and dog in unsupervised learning, the machine will feed images of cats and dogs, and at the end it will form two groups, one groups containing cats, other containing dogs. Now the only difference here is that it want add label to the output. Okay, it will just understand how cats look and cluster them into predefined data and to depend on the action taken by the agent. These actions are then recorded in the form of matrices so that it can serve as a memory to the agent. So basically, as the agent exploit the environment, it will collect data which was then being used to get the output. So guys, reinforcement learning, there is no predefined data sets given to the machine. The agent does all the work from the stretch. Now, the next parameter to consider is training and supervised learning. The training phases as well as defined and very exploit the machine speed training data where both the input and output is labeled, and the only thing the algorithm has to do is map the input to the output, so the training data act like a teacher or a guide over here. Now, once the algorithm is well trained, it is tested using the new data. When it comes to unsupervised learning, the training phase is big because the machine is only given the input and it has to figure out the output on its own. So there is no supervisor here, or there is no monitor over here. And reinforcement learning, there is no predefined data, and the whole reinforcement learning processing itself is a training and testing phases. Since there is no predefined data given to the machine, it has to learn everything on its own, and it starts by exploring and collecting data. Guys, the next parameter we are going to discuss is the aim of each of these the aim of each of these machine learning types. The main aim or the end goal of a supervised learning algorithm is to forecast an outcome. Now, obviously, that is the basic aim of all these machine learning types, but the whole supervised learning process is built in such a way that it can directly give you a predicted outcome, because supervised learning is all about discovering pattern and extracting useful insight. Now, since the algorithm is only fed the input, it has to find a way to get to the output by finding trend and association in the data. Coming to reinforcement learning, the agent here is a lot like a human child, just how a baby is clueless about the world. Initially, the agent also has no idea about its environment, but as it explore the environment, it start learning. It learns from the mistake it make, and it basically learn from its experience. Now let's look at the approach earlier. All that the algorithm has to do is map the known input to the unknown trend and the data, and keep exploring the data until it reach the output. The trial and error method best explain reinforcement learning, because the agent has to try out all possible action to learn about its environment and to get maximum rewards. Now guys, the next parameter is feedback. Now in supervised learning, there is a direct feedback machine mechanism. Since the machine is trained with built input and output. For unsupervised learning, there is no feedback mechanism because the machine is unaware of the output during the training phase. Now in reinforcement learning, the feedback is in the form of rewards or punishment from the environment. So when an agent take a suitable action, it will get a corresponding rewards for that action. But if the action is wrong, then it gets a punishment. So rewards and punishment can be thought with respect to a game. Now in a game, when you win a state, you get extra coin, but when you fail, you have to go back to the same state and try again now. And now guys, the next parameter is output feedback. Now let's look at some of the popular algorithm. Now let's look at some of the popular algorithms. Supervised learning has algorithm like linear regression, which is mainly used for regression problems. It also has algorithm like support vector machine decision trees and so on. And these can also be used for classification problems. Coming to unsupervised learning, we have algorithm like k-mean, c-mean for clustering analysis, and algorithm like error and association rule mining to deal with association problem. Now reinforcement learning is just being explored. Recently, a few algorithms include q-learning, the state action reward state action algorithm. The next up, we have application. So guys, supervised learning is widely used in the business sector for forecasting risk analysis, predicting scales, profit, and so on. Coming to unsupervised learning. So guys, the recommendation you see when you shop online, like for example, if you buy a book on Amazon, right, you get a list of recommendation. Now these are all are done by unsupervised learning algorithm. Other applications include anomaly detection, credit card fraud detection, and so on. Now, reinforcement learning is used in self-driving car and building games, and all of that. One famous example is the AlphaGo game. I'm sure all of you have heard of that. So guys, those were the major difference between the supervised and unsupervised and reinforcement learning. So guys, with this, we come to the end of today's video. I hope all of you enjoy it. If you have any doubts or any queries regarding this session, please leave in the comments section and we'll get back to you at the earliest. So guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Have a great day. I hope you enjoy listening to this video. Please subscribe to my channel and share and like and comment. See you in the next video.